What's going on, people? Welcome back to the Stay Weighedin YouTube channel. Today we've got a special guest joining us and a range of other guests will be coming along as well. But to start off with, let me introduce my guy Malik from Boxing with the Mandem. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Early start today, boy.
Early start, man. Early start, late finishes. This is the boxing world we live in. Talking about boxing, we're here to break down the biggest fight of the year so far, and that is Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. Firstly, I'm going to go to you, my man. How excited are you for this fight?
I think this is a generational fight. This is a fight that's come early. This is a fight that's come on time. Unlike the Pacquiao and a Mayweather fight, this has come at the right time at both their peaks. They're at good age. I believe boxing has advanced to the point where, you would think that fighters fighting in their 20s was a good time. But I think now 30s is the prime for a lot of boxers, obviously in the advances of technology and health and all sorts. So I'm really excited about this fight. I think this is going to define the generation. Welterweight has always been that hallmark Hall of Fame category for boxing.
I was going to say, you kind of nailed it there, which was actually going to be one of the points. Unlike what we got when Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, where we had a conversation of this was a fight that we wanted to see, but it came a few years too late. Right now, we're sitting with two men, all the belts on the line, and undefeated. Everything is literally a case of someone's all will go unless we get a draw. And we can't have a bigger fight, would you say, in boxing than this right now?
I think, when you look at what Crawford has done, he's come from lightweight division all the way to welterweight division. There's nothing you can do. He's done everything in his power to give us the best fight. And then you've had Spence, who's fought people that were avoided in his division. The only one he didn't fight was Furman. He fought Danny Garcia, he fought Sean Porter, he fought Kell Brook. He fought Ugas. And when you think about all these top level welterweights, he's cleaned the division. There's no one except for Ennis, but that's a whole different discussion.
That's a ball game. Both should not be fighting.
I personally think it's one of those fights you just don't take it. There's no need. You could win this fight and go off into the sunset. But he's been a seasoned welterweight, and that clash of two guys that have just Crawford has come up to the division. He's come and taken a belt. He's beaten up Sean Porter. He's established himself as a welterweight. I don't know what you could ask from both of the fighters personally. He's on to come over to Showtime to make that fight happen.
I was just going to say that. So I think that's probably the only thing I can say, that going into this fight, for me, Errol Spence seems a bit more of the A side, because Crawford has to do all the jumping to make this. And then when you look at how the card is built as well, it's Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. It's not the other way around. So we do have him being the number A side here. And he's carrying 3 belts as well. Is that fair to say that Errol Spence is the A side when it comes to this fight, or is Terence Crawford for you the A side?
110%. I think what Errol Spence has done in the division alone, just having all the belts and fighting the fights that most welterweights weren't doing. A lot of these welterweights weren't fighting each other, and Errol Spence has constantly gone for the best, gone for his mandatory. He's never hid or ducked. Unfortunately, he's had these accidents that have caused some pauses in his career, but he's always gone for these fights. He's never hid or ducked from them. There was no excuses from his party. So I think it only makes sense. He's got the majority of the belts, so it only makes sense telling someone who's gone and collected 3 to now be the B side for someone who's just come up to the division. You know what I mean? And I think ultimately that's going to be the big Achilles heels. I was going to say, you talked about Errol Spence's resume, but I really want to touch on Terence Crawford's resume as well. Between both guys, I would say for me, when it came to Errol Spence, his coming out fight where he got that recognition was probably against Kell Brook. So if you take it from Kell Brook onwards, from just a casual standpoint, out not looking at Terence Crawford at 140,
Who has the better resume at 147 for you?
Oh, Errol Spence by far. And I'll say this. The reason why when we look at Crawford, we look at his first fight. He had his fight with Kell Brook. That was during lockdown. Many will argue that wasn't the best Kell Brook. It wasn't a Kell Brook that, you know what I mean? There was a lot of, and he had come off a beating from Errol Spence. You know what I mean? Things weren't going great. It wasn't the best time to box anyway, but he done the job. No one's going to take that from him. I think the Sean Porter fight kind of made me realize, oh, you know what? Crawford's going to do a lot in this division because of the way he beat him. You know what I mean? And then knocking him down. That's something that Errol Spence wasn't able to do in his fight. You know what I mean? So I think Crawford showed that he can carry power through those divisions. And also he has a good knockout. I think he has a better knockout resume at welterweight compared to, as of the recent fights. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that. So yeah, it shows that. But I do think it's a thing where, you know, when a fighter keeps jumping divisions,
yeah,
it's like I feel like Errol Spence he's a bit too much. You know what I mean? I feel like with Errol Spence, he's a seasoned welterweight. He is the best of that division.
Yeah, I hear it.
And I feel like skill can only take you so far. And I think that's what's happened with Crawford. He's so skillful. You're looking at a master boxer when you're looking at Crawford. But it's the same thing I saw with Kaleno and Bivol. You can be a master boxer all you want, but physics are real. When somebody's so much bigger than you, and so you could see the size difference on stage when Errol Spence and Crawford are on stage. You could actually see that on the night. I would expect Errol Spence to be the bigger man, and yeah, that's causing a lot of problems.
What I will counter with that is, when we had the Canelo Bivol situation, you didn't have a true 175-pound fighter when Canelo made that move. Here, you can legitimately look and say you have two 147 fighters. Even though I understand your point that Crawford made that move up, but because he's moved up so much, he can also be, for me, seen as a seasoned welterweight where he deserves his flowers there as well. I do want to actually touch on just breaking down this fight as well. You touched about the quickness and the way that Crawford can approach this fight. What would you say are some of Crawford's weaknesses?
Crawford's defense. I think and two things actually, Crawford's defense and Crawford's slow start to fights. If you watch some of his previous fights, he always tends to lose the early rounds. Or if he doesn't lose it, it's 50-50. I remember in the Sean Porter fight specifically where he didn't even know if he was up on the cards. And this was like in the 11th or 10th round. And you're like, that's how, you know what I mean, things can get swayed. So in a championship level fight, you can't take those risks, especially with someone like Errol Spence, who he's so neat with his work and he will get the job done. That's the thing. He will get those rounds in. Now, defense-wise, Crawford can't afford to get hit. I keep saying this, like, Errol Spence is a killer. He's not normal. He's not norm. He really hurts his opponents. And he's done that. I think the only opponent that he really didn't damage was Danny Garcia. And you can still argue that he hasn't really been the same since. You know what I mean? He really takes his opponents into deep waters. And I feel that's why I believe that just at weight level, that's where I see Spence kind of having the number on Crawford. But skill-wise, Crawford is, yeah, I admire the guy.
I was going to say, for me, one thing that he has is probably the footwork that Errol Spence probably doesn't have. You see, Errol Spence is a bit more of a static approach. Nothing against it, because obviously it's a lot more forward encompassing, fighting on the inside. Whereas if you look at, that was Spence. If you look at Crawford, you can see how he can shuffle on the back foot a lot more, being able to play with people a bit more, not necessarily needing to cut off the ring, but being able to fight more at a distance. We do have two guests waiting just to come on, so we are going to bring them in right now. Yes, boys, we have with us joining right now, we've got Trey and Chris. How you doing, man?
Good. Not too bad. Yourself, lads?
Very well. we were just chatting about the strengths and weaknesses of both fighters. So I think it was the perfect time to bring you guys in as well, and just to get your views. Talk about Crawford just before, so I wanted to hear any of you guys just jump in. What do you guys think are Terence Crawford's strengths?
I reckon that Crawford, he's a switcher. Skillful wise, I'll say he's better than Errol, but that's the only advantage I reckon that he's got. You know, they're both undefeated, so I'll just say he's a switcher and he's better on his feet. Other than that, for me, it's 50-50.
Andrew, what about yourself?
Yeah, just firstly, just thank you guys for giving us the platform to talk boxing with you. You know, on Sunday, it's always good to have a boxing chat with the community. In regards to Crawford's strengths, obviously you both have said it best. All you guys have said it best. Crawford is a switch fighter, of course. So what that means is he can change from orthodox to southpaw, which creates a lot of angles for him, especially in the exchange. And I do believe that Crawford's gonna try and get in between the punches when Spence is obviously on the attack. Obviously, I'm a massive Spence fan. If you guys wouldn't know, but I still think that this fight will bring the best out of both fighters, and I think that both fighters are able to get the sort of inner fight out of each other as well. So it's gonna be a very good fight.
I was going to say, we've touched on that. In terms of Errol Spence, you guys have alluded to being fans as well. We talked about how his footwork probably isn't the best, especially when it comes to the back foot side of things. Fighting on the inside for me is probably his biggest strength and where he could probably get the most damage when it comes to Crawford. Do you guys agree with that, or do you think there could be something in the training camp this time leading up to it where they identify his weakness and probably work on that a bit more than just honing in on his strengths?
Yeah, because I could fly straight in here with Spence. I think Spence has a formula that is clear. He's done it for a period of time, and I feel that as a fighter, you shouldn't really change too much of what's worked. I know obviously Crawford you would class him as one of the best of this era. So as a fighter, you adapt. But I do expect Crawford to still be in the inside, trying to land those body shots, which he does well. And we're going to really see if Crawford can really be in there in terms of I would say get him into deep waters, I would say, because what Spence does is as he said he's going to do for this fight, he's going to break him down, not just physically, but also mentally as well, with him constantly coming forward. He's not fast with his footwork, yes, but his attack is so calculated where he doesn't really just throw shots for the sake of throwing shots. He's throwing meaningful shots, which, over the rounds could play its part. So that's just my sort of thoughts on how Spence is going to, take this fight.
And Chris, what about yourself, just quickly?
So I feel like there's going to be a few adjustments, and I feel that leading into the fight, I feel that mid to late round, that Spence is going to be more aggressive.
Okay, I hear that. Now, Mike, I know you're a bit cut for time, so I do want to get your opinion on this fight. I want to get a prediction, and I want a proper prediction. So are we getting a knockout, or are we going over 12 rounds? What are we seeing from this fight, and how is it ending?
I have a lot of respect for Crawford, so I won't even say get knocked out. I'll say, I will say one thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a knockout. I'm leaning more for 12 rounds, and I believe it will be a Kaleno Bivol type of situation where he's just too big for him. He's too strong. He will take his Errol Spence will take his punishment, and over time he'll realize that it's not the same thing. I think Errol Spence. The only thing I will say that I will put out there now as a concern is Errol Spence's eye. I think because of how good his defense is, we've never taken that into consideration. If there's any boxer right now in the world that could take advantage of Errol Spence's issue with his eyes and so is Terence Crawford. We haven't yet to see it, but this is one of those fights where I think everything will be tested. Is Errol Spence still the same? Is he still great? Is he still what Mayweather said about him? You know what I mean? After the 2 accidents, we'll have to see. And that's what makes this fight so exciting.
Do you know what? You've left us probably on a perfect conversation topic point straight after this. But just quickly before you go, just shout out where people can see your content as well. And appreciate you for waking up early to jump on with us.
I'm on YouTube, Boxing with the Mandem. And yeah, man, thank you a lot for having me. I look forward to coming back. Get me? There's a lot of fights happening, AJ fights. So yeah, I'm here whenever.
Appreciate that, man.
Bless up, brothers.
Bless up. Enjoy your Sunday, my brother.
Peace.
So let's go on to that, because one of the things I talk about is the fact that Errol Spence loves taking eyes himself, but he's also had issues with his own eye as well. I believe that was just before the Manny Pacquiao fight, so obviously it left him with not the opportunity. I think Jeff Horn just came in and did what he needed to do at that particular point. Let's talk about it then. Crawford being a specialist, and I'll probably say this is going to be the biggest, not necessarily the biggest, the toughest opponent you'll be able to face. How much of a vulnerability, just opening out to yes, is going to be that eye?
I don't think so, you know, if I'm honest with you. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, his eye, but just remember when he had a crash and he fought Danny Garcia. Okay, it wasn't his best performance because, you know, he was in activity for over, I believe, 2 years. Yeah. And look, when he fought Ugas, look what he done to Ugas. So I personally think he's all right.
Trey, do you think it could be a bit of a factor here?
Yeah, I agree with my cousin, definitely. I agree with him. I think that a lot of people are looking at the car crash, they're looking at the eye injuries, but he's had fights afterwards, and he's still been able to get the job done. He's been able to receive shots. We got to look, we got the Danny Garcia fight straight after the car crash as well. It just shows you the kind of mindset that Errol Spence has. A lot of fighters would have probably taken a few tune-up fights just to see where their body's at. But look, he went into the deep end. He fought Danny Garcia. And then you got to look at also the Ugas fight as well. He took a big shot there as well. It was a bit of a tester as well. And look, he's fine. He's ready to go. He's motivated. I don't think it's going to be a factor. I genuinely think the person who wants it more on the night will win it on the night.
I was going to say, I think Spencer's trainer alluded to the fact that this is going to come to a grit and attitude type of thing. Between you guys, then, who has more of that inner grit in them, that inner dog in them? I'd phrase this then. Who's been tested more and has been able to showcase that inner dog in them so far in their career then?
You know what, cuz, do you want me to take this? What I'm thinking is this is where I've sort of became a Spence fan. So I will, as you would, I supported Kell Brook, especially for that fight that he had, in his hometown, Sheffield.
Yeah.
I felt for that fight, Spence had to really, really dig deep because Kell, he's a good boxer. He took him into deep waters. He was landing some good shots. He had to sort of bite his lip, or let's say sort of grit his teeth for that fight, especially to, get those stoppage, get the stoppage in the end. I definitely feel that he had to sort of go above and beyond to strip Kell Brook for his titles, and that's where I became a fan. And I genuinely believe that was one of the situations where we saw Spence. He had to go to a hostile situation, which is come over to the UK. We already know with certain American fighters that they kind of felt a type of way, coming to the UK, because they always felt that, if it went to the judge's decision, we could obviously lose it. So it was always that sort of agenda. But he came, got the job done, became champion, and I think that was one of the fights that I felt, he had to grit his teeth in this one.
I say this to a lot of people as well, because of the fact that he wasn't fighting in America. Here in the UK, it gave us probably, or casuals, more of a chance to be able to watch him. That was probably his coming out party, and people realized, wait a minute, there's this guy here that we need to take into consideration when it comes to the welterweight division. And from there, you've just seen a gradual ascendancy to where you could argue he's probably the number one welterweight. I want to touch on that quickly. Actually, yeah, let's go into that. Who do you guys believe is the number one welterweight right now in boxing? Is it him or is it Crawford?
At the moment, I would have to say it's Spence, because he has all the belts. Well, he had the majority of the belts, and Crawford's got one belt. But I think the decider will be done on the 29th. Once we have an undisputed welterweight champion, that's when we can say, okay, this one's the number one king. But for now, I'll probably say Spence.
Okay.
You know what? I have to agree with BNG. I definitely feel that Spence is number one. He's the big fish, which he calls himself. He's the guy that, you know, if you're gonna fight him, he's the golden goose of the division. Let's say he's the guy that brings bums to seats and puts on the shows. So for me, Spence number one. But I agree with Cuz. You know, July 29th, the truth will be revealed, and that's my sort of slogan for the fight.
And just keeping with welterweight boxing itself, where are we throwing Boots Ennis in there? Like, where is he?
Do you know what? With Boots Ennis, I've got nothing against him, but he hasn't been tested yet. I know he wants to fight Spence, but the opponent that I would like to see him fight next is Ugas. If he beats Ugas, then he deserves a world title shot. That's just my personal opinion. Because at the moment, like, I'm happy with his last performance, but I wasn't happy with the previous performance.
You similar with that, Trey? Like that, because I'm kind of in that same boat where I think you've got all the razzmatazz to go with it, but that little switch where you move up, that quality of opponent hasn't been hit, and it's not on him too much. I understand why, because you don't need to push somebody when that person already has that following, and then fights will come, because he'll probably be the A side in a majority of the fights he's in. So he's not going to not be able to make them fights. But I hear what you're saying, because I agree with it. There's a little switch that needs to occur, and I think Ugas is probably the best name, similar to how Keith Thurman is to some people when you move that transition from 140 to 147. It's always, let's get a Keith Thurman fight in straight away just to put your name out there. I think Ugas is probably the perfect name that you could put on your resume to get people to be like, yeah, that's that guy. Sticking on Spence, because I do want to talk on Crawford, and then also just in general. You mentioned about Boots Ennis wanting to fight him, but Spence has probably already alluded to the fact that 154 is coming straight after this. When we look at Spence here, just like when we saw Teofimo Lopez in his last fight, my mind has just eluded me who he fought, and it's going to annoy me. See, you guys can let me.
The Scottish guy,
Josh Taylor.
Taylor, that's it. So we knew Taylor was moving up to 147. Errol Spence is on a similar trajectory. Kind of weight cut in this particular fight potentially harm him, considering this is probably going to be the elite of all elite fights.
I mean, previously, Errol Spence was saying he used to struggle to make weight, but he said now he's fine making the weight. I feel that if he gets the win, then yeah, he's definitely moving up. But if he was to lose this fight, I reckon that there'll be a rematch. I don't think he's gonna have any struggle making this weight at all. I just think comparing it with Josh Taylor, I just think the motivation is just gone. It just left. You know, the motivation's gone. Hence why that his performance last time was not great.
What's your feeling on this, Trey? Is a weight that he's made constantly, but alluded to the fact that he wants to move to 154, going to be an issue for this fight? Or do you think, like we talked about, being that dog in him, he's going to be able to grit it up, make the weight, and not have any excuses?
If I'm honest with you, he's fully committed to this fight. As you hear him call, you know, it's strap season. You see in his t-shirts, you see the 3 doors or the 4 doors, and the last door is Crawford. He's wanted this fight, you know, 4 years ago. He's manifested this fight to be essentially his last fight at welterweight, I believe. I reckon after this fight, like what BNG's saying, if he wins, I think he's moving up. And I reckon if he moves up, then, you know, the welterweight division, you know, opens up really well, because, you know, Crawford could then, you know, fight Boots Ennis, you know, for a title, or for one of the vacant belts, let's say. Or yeah, it's looking juicy. But for me, Spence is motivated, he's fully committed, and he'll make the weight. And I definitely think we will see the best of you know, the truth. And the truth will be revealed July 29th, man. I'm just going to say it again.
Just quickly on both guys' training camps, because I want to talk about a few little things just on pay-per-view pricing, and I'm interested to hear your views on it as well. Both training camps looking into this. Is there anything either training camp should potentially change, or is it a case of let's do what brought us to the dance here and we can go ahead and get our win?
I think for both training camp, there's going to be adjustment. There has to be, because this is a big event. This is a nobody. It's the biggest event, and I believe this is going to probably be Crawford's biggest paycheck in this event. So they're going in at 100%, knowing that, okay, even they go twig a few things, like for example, Crawford might have to work more on his defense, because obviously we know. Not Crawford, sorry, Spence has to work on his defense, because we know Bud, he's a switcher, do you know what I mean? And then you don't want to trade with Bud too much. So, yeah, there's going to be a few adjustments.
Trey, what's your view on what both camps should bring?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think adjustments needs to be made. I think when you look at Crawford in a lot of his fights, he tends to sort of start slow off the blocks. Maybe, you know, increase the intensity, you know, during his camps, starting off fast and maintaining that level of consistency throughout the rounds. Because I definitely feel that if he starts slow off the blocks against Spence, who we know he maintains a consistent rhythm throughout the fights, you don't really see him sort of change the rhythm of what he does. It's normally, that's why a lot of people tend to say that Spence looks very stiff-footed, very you know, robotic, but it's very calculated, the shots that he puts across. He's very calculated in terms of how he walks down fighters, the body shots. Like, he's, for me, I'm not biased here, but in terms of body shots, you have to consider Spence to be one of the best body shot givers in boxing right now. So for me, if Crawford doesn't make the adjustment in terms of starting fast in the fight, then he could find himself in a situation where he's chasing the fight, and I don't think he'd want to be in that situation, especially against Spence, because remember there was that point against Porter where he got told he was down, and then he sort of switched it up. He might do that with Spence, but then that might, you know, get a different reaction as opposed to what happened with Porter. And, you know, we could see a potential stoppage or a knockdown. So, look, it's going to be an interesting one. And I think both fighters are going to be 150% ready, because this is going to be a fight for the ages, man. This reminds me sort of the Tommy Hearns / Sugar Ray Leonard fight years ago. Like this, it just brings that sort of feel.
So, do you know what I'll do? Because I talked with Malik about this, but it'll just be right to ask yourselves as well. Both guys, we alluded it to a little bit of Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, but in this case, you look at both guys who have been able to push this fight to make it at their peak. Are you guys saying the same thing as well, or do you think it may have come just a little bit? Or is this the peak of the peak, the creme de la creme, and they've nailed it?
I reckon it's the perfect time now. It's the perfect time, because you know it is with boxing. There's too much politics where, you know, Crawford was at top rank, and you know Spencer's at PBC. Sometimes when it comes to negotiation, it's a no-brainer. But now Crawford's a free agent. It's a perfect fight. It's perfect. That's happening right now.
Trey, same thing as well. Do you just believe perfect timing? You can't ask for more.
Yeah, you know what? We have to give credit to both fighters, for making this happen. I know we live in an era now where, having an O on your record, means a lot, and certain fighters don't want to put that O on the line. But look, both fighters are putting it all on the table. It's for all the marbles. It's the right timing. Both guys are at, I would say at their peak. I would say peak. I would say they're both at their peak. The timing is perfect, and I definitely feel that we will see a rematch, but I don't think we'll see a rematch at 147. I think we'll see a rematch at a higher division potentially.
Do you know why I'd say both guys are at their peak? Is because they both cleaned out the division. At the end of the day, when you look at it and you look at anybody in the welterweight rankings, you're like, Spence has done that one. Crawford beat him first, Spence went second. Spence went first, Crawford went second. Tit for tat, and the dust is settled. You guys are 1 and 2. So this is where the heavyweight boxing needs to pay suit, because what we're seeing with Tyson Fury right now, I'm okay with exhibition fights, but don't give me an exhibition when you're walking around as WBC world champion and we can have a unification fight in Saudi Arabia or wherever that is. Just want to do a little bit of a British take before I do, like I said, talk about pricing. When you look at British welterweight boxing, because there's divisions where we dominate, are we lacking a little bit here where there's not that much interest? Or if there is, who would you guys say is the possible next British welterweight champion type of thing? Who has that potential?
I would say before the shenanigan and the madness was Conor Benn. But my only issue with Conor Benn is that he was fighting the opponents that he was fighting. They're pretty much done. They're no longer credible. I understand they were former champions, over 10 years ago or something. But I would, let's just say Conor Benn comes back. I would like to see Conor Benn challenge the likes of Ugas, because obviously he's saying, he believes that he will become champion one day. I believe so, but I don't want him fighting. I wouldn't want him fighting Adrian Broner. AB is not the same no more. This is not the same AB. I want him to challenge the likes of Ugas and maybe Boots Ennis in the long run, and then hopefully, or title shot.
Do you know what I'd say just with that? I would love AB versus Conor Benn just for what we see with AB. Like we saw what happened on this last fight. He was like, Don King, we back, we carry all the champs. I like my green belts. I like every belt. I like yours. So I could just imagine what he would be able to do. But I hear what you mean, because I'm on a similar wavelength. Like Trey, what's your opinion right now on British welterweight boxing?
Yeah, British welterweight boxing is sort of on the rise, but look, we've got to look at the promotional companies that's behind the fighters, and PBC, when it comes down to the welterweights, they've obviously got a ultimate roster, I would say. So I do agree with Cuz. I think if we're looking at sort of the next British welterweight champion, you're looking at someone like Conor Benn. I think there's a potential growth for him. And I would sort of want this whole Eubank Jr. Ben fight to sort of die out now, so that both guys could respectfully focus on their careers. I think Conor Benn has a bright future in welterweight, and I think a fight with Ugas, a fight with Keith Thurman, he needs to get itty-gritty now in the division so that we can get more exposure for him. So these fighters that we mentioned, why not put them in in the States? We know Matchroom now are growing. I would say, a global presence now. They obviously just hosted the homecoming for the Bomb yesterday in Detroit. So I think more of our fighters do need to sort of put themselves out there, fight in the States, fight these guys like the Keith Thurmans, the ABs, the Ugases of this world, and just get some exposure so that we can have more of a platform for our other fighters coming through in the UK.
No, I hear that completely. I think one thing you said about Showtime having that welterweight roster, when I look at welterweight boxing, I always go towards Showtime. I always think, let's see what's the PBC card saying today, even though it's never on time and the fight might be scheduled for 4:30, but they're starting at 5:30. I'm like, you guys are taking the mick. But Nah, I hear what you guys are saying. I do want to touch on quickly before we wrap up and get your guys' prediction and views. The price came out for this fight at 19.95. I'll say this: we've had worse fights, a lot more expensive, and they have been heavily criticized, and rightfully so. We've also talked about this podcast, the fact that you have influencer boxing and people turn out in their masses. They do the DAZN subscription. They're there watching Jake Paul do his thing. Is this the perfect time for boxing fans to step up, come to the mark, and give us very big pay-per-view figures? And how do you feel about the pricing?
I'm happy with the pricing, 9.90. So is it
19.95? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty decent. I think yeah, I have no issues with it at all. I think that we had previously Tank and Garcia. I feel that they've stepped up now, and now we're having Spence and Crawford. I feel that in terms of money wise, it's good. But my understanding in America, the pay-per-view there is double the amount, right? Like 85.
Yeah. I still remember. I think I alluded to beforehand where Floyd was fighting, and he would basically charge you different prices for different stream qualities. So if you wanted in 1080p, you were paying $70. If you wanted in 4K, you were paying $90. So compare the pay-per-view structure here, where you're getting one payment for everything, is perfect. But I think for me, it's just a case of we have a lot of boxing fans that like to talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk when it comes to supporting the fighters. It's just like, let me see what the stream is. Let me see what the stream is saying. So this, for me, has the potential to be able to do big numbers. And like we mentioned, we've got 3 pay-per-view fights coming up. Another one being AJ versus Dillian White as well. But for me, 19.95, where you're seeing the creme de la creme at the welterweight division, is probably the best price you can see. What's your opinion, Trey? Are you going to be in the hat as well that puts the money in, or actually, do you know what? I'm gonna let you say your thing now.
No, honestly, I think now boxing's on the rise, and we all, as fans, need to support the fighters, man. Because at the end of the day, yes, look, we could do the streaming and all of that, but let's all get together and support the fighters. But that also, it goes out to the promoters, it goes out to the management companies that are putting out the accessibility for the tickets for us to buy and support the fighters as well. But I definitely feel with the pay-per-view prices here in the UK, we've got no complaints. If we're in the States, it's probably a different story because the prices are a bit, I couldn't even imagine, how much, Spence Crawford is going to be in the States. I can't even imagine the price. But in terms of here, I think it's reasonable. You look at AJ versus White, the price looks good. And look, I'm really excited that we've got 3, pay-per-views in the next few weeks. We've got History of Violence, British Beef Part 2. That's what my cousin's sort of calling it. And I'm excited, man.
So let's go into this before we wrap up. I need both of you guys' predictions. Where are we seeing this fight ending? How are you seeing this fight ending? And give us like one little point for each fighter why you think they could each win as well before your predictions. So Chris, will go to you first. Give me a little thing for each fighter to win and your prediction.
Right. In order for Crawford to win this fight, right, he has to knock out Errol Spence mid to late round. Yeah. If that doesn't happen, if it goes to distance, then Spence will win on points.
And what's your prediction then?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a Spence fan, so I'm a bit biased with this. So I'm gonna take off my Spence hat and have a neutral take on this. I think that the weight of Errol Spence in this situation will play a big factor. I think that the choice of punches that is obviously going to be displayed on the night is going to be a very big factor. We don't know how well Crawford could take a body shot. We know that Spence, puts on a lot of body shots. So there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of situations. But for me, I honestly see a late stoppage from Spence. I think he's going to eventually break down Bud, and he's going to, eventually stop him late on. So I'm calling from rounds 7 to 9. Let's go for 7 to 9 stoppage.
I hear that. I'm still on Team Spence. I was Team Spence from day one. What I will say is, I think, like you guys have alluded, he has to impose himself on the inside. Once Crawford feels them punches, it may be a different ballgame because everyone feels they can beat it until you get hit. Again, at the same time, it'll be interesting to see will Errol Spence become frustrated with the slickness of Terence Crawford in this particular fight. I think that's also going to be a key point because I think if you looked at both fighters, both fighters go into every fight as the big favorite. This is the first time we can sit here and say we have a 50-50 true unification bout. If that doesn't get boxing fans excited, I generally don't know what will then. It is what it is on that sense. But before we wrap up, I want any of you guys boys just to shout out where people can see your content and where they can drop you guys a little like, subscribe, and just come back as well.
Yeah, so essentially, firstly, Abbas, man, wanted to big you up for being a tremendous host for this show. Stay weighed in is the movement, and we're obviously part of the movement. So big up to you, big up to
Appreciate that, man.
And yeah, guys, you could obviously follow us on iBoxingHub. So that's iBoxingHub. We are the platform, for the fans, by fans, and our aim is just to sort of give fans a voice within the boxing community, but also give them access into the boxing world. And we've got, our very own host here, which is my co-host, Mr. Sports Entertainment, aka BNG. So yeah, we're just looking to, help those that are fans like us, so that we could get the message to the right people.
I hear that. And as always, guys, with ourselves as well, before we wrap up, follow us on all the social media platforms, like, share, subscribe, and the guys' links will also be in the description. As always, love and peace, and stay weighed in.